think if music never existed, how would life be? Like there was no music, just maybe sounds, but no like composure of music, so you wouldn't get like the different genres or the different singers. Like movies wouldn't have necessarily like music. How would you think life would be?
Dull.
Right?
That's the best way to put it. It would be dull. I feel like music brings energy, it brings life to what we're currently experiencing. Like, I think that without music, I don't know where it would be, to be honest. Especially in today's day and age, I feel like we're so inclined with music that I can't separate myself from music. I can't separate what I do on a daily basis from music.
Mm,
Like
mm,
even the spaces that I go to, like everything that I interact with
mm.
has something to do with music or something that music has influenced. When I open my wardrobe and I look at, okay, so what am I going to wear today? It's maybe, I don't know, whatever an artist Rihanna was talking about in her song or whatever she wore in her music video, in fact. It's
Yes.
stuff like that, but I feel like I can't imagine my life, my daily habits without music
Yes,
or
yeah.
music influence.
It's so entrenched in like just our human being everyday life that if it wasn't there, it would be very, like you said, dull. It would be very, I think it would be very like soft and like not gray, but there wouldn't be array of like these different color schemes and fashion would be different. Life in general would be very different.
Yeah.
So then if we both agree that music is very influential, would you also agree that the notion of music comes with um, being able to express yourself, being vocal, having a voice? That without music we wouldn't have those things.
Yeah, I would, because with music, it is expression. It is telling people, hey, these are my thoughts, this is my opinion, or this is what's going on in the world. Let me put it in something. It gives voice. Yeah.
100%. And it also just wakes up some sort of consciousness in you to think about things differently, especially because there's so many different genres of music, there's so many different ways of thinking or thinking or portraying a story of some struggle. And you can have the same struggle in like different genres, from like hip hop to R&B to soul to rock. They can all talk about the same thing, but it's expressive in so many different ways. It's almost like a different language, but it's still the same, like struggle or expression of something.
Yeah, most definitely.
Okay.
Most definitely. Because everyone has a way, like in music, for example, the different genres of music, you are right by saying that we might all be talking about the same thing, but it's expressed differently and we all hear about it differently. So maybe the message that a certain artist is trying to bring out, I would incline more towards hip hop or R&B, whereas another person would feel like their expression would be in terms of rock and roll
Yeah.
or indie music.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think music is just very versatile. Like it fits in anywhere, no matter where you are, no matter how old you are or what you're going through. It just fits in.
Yeah. All along, music has influenced me some way, somehow.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I've always been someone that if I'm in love with a certain artist or a certain music genre, like it becomes a part of me. Like I can't distance myself
Yeah,
from it.
yeah.
Yeah, because then it was Disney Channel music. When I was younger, it was Kwaito and Zola 7, like when I was like around 4 or 5 years old. I can't even remember these things, but these are things that like my family tells me that when
Mm,
this song used to play, you used to be out here saying every single word in the song. Like it would change everything about me. It's like I would embody
That
a
genre.
different.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Yes. And it's the fact that you brought that up when we're younger, like when we're younger, we don't really remember everything. But if there's a certain song playing, you'll remember this time when you were in the kitchen and you were doing what. And then
Yeah.
just because that music played, you would remember something that you thought you wouldn't. Would you agree that music has quite a big influence on our lives and that it could also stem down to like the different musics we would listen to on a daily would affect our well-being and also our ability to unlock some sort of consciousness within us.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But to what level would you agree to that?
How can I put it? Some sort of level of consciousness.
Mm,
Okay, so let's say right now I'm obsessed with Beyonce's latest album, Renaissance, right?
okay.
So every time I'd listen to this album, my first when I listened to, I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this?
Mm-hmm,
Right? Because it was very different from what she usually does.
mm-hmm,
And then when I started listening to it, I'm like, okay, wait, like it's unlocking a different part of my personality that I've always kept hidden.
mm-hmm,
But I've always been like, I want to do this, I want to do that. And then I was like, okay, let me start actually like actively engaging towards going towards stuff like this. So
yes.
the Renaissance album is basically celebrating what do you call this? Like club music.
Club, okay.
Right. So it's club music, it's Vogue night, it's Pose, it's the era of like basically ballrooms in New York.
Okay.
Right. So drag queens, that type of vibe.
Mm-hmm,
So I was like, okay, I've always wanted to do something so I can experience like I can have my own experience with it, right? So I was like, okay, let me go to like a Vogue night party for once and see what's happening there. Because here's this album and I locked a part of myself. I'm like, oh no, let me actually try and do that. And when I went, I was like,
yeah.
oh my gosh, this is everything I've been wanting. So in touch with the people that were there. Like I felt like we were on the same vibration, that we would listen to this type of music and it would just give us life, it would give us energy, it would give us a certain confidence, like a certain presence
Mm,
between us. And then ever since that, like I feel like I've changed as a person. I've changed,
yeah.
like it unlocked a part of my mind where I thought that, hey, no man, let me actually be out there, let me actually engage with other people because I'm a very shy, very quiet person unless you eventually know me and then you see, no, 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 Ellen's kind of crazy. But I was like, okay, this album's talking about unlocking that part of yourself
Yeah.
and let me do that. So yeah, I would say that it unlocks some sort of consciousness. Yeah.
So that actually I would read.
My research topic is about groovist spaces in
Mhm,
townships,
okay.
right? So I call them groovist spaces outside of just the word groove and us like our generation like calling people groovers, like people who enjoy having fun, going to parties, listening to music and all of that, dancing. I call it a groover space because these are the spaces that these people usually go to, these people usually engage with. And because of that, those spaces have just like transformed the energy in a township. So some places like used to be like taverns and all of that. And then when this groove culture started started gaining momentum, they changed what they were and then they became like more of like a lifestyle center. Like it started, I kind of want to say it started fusing with the groovers culture
Mm,
and the music that groovers people listen to. So I kind of try and like link those two, that how did something that was basically here the whole time become influenced by groovers culture and then become such a big part of identity in a
yeah.
township. how did it create such like a bigger sense of place, a bigger sense of community between the people, and some sort of place attachment as well.
Mm.
Yeah, so it's basically exploring the notion of place in relation to a groover space.
Okay. Investigating how music culture influences activity and spatial change in Brahm. So I'm looking at how the creation of, like, you know how Brahm is this very vibrant, lively place with different lounges, clubs, bars, 24 eateries and streetwear, and it embodies what music culture is, but it's also
Yeah.
very in a city, so you wouldn't necessarily expect it to be happening like in the inner city, but it is. So just from that, and like how Brum has changed from the first year of university that we've been through to now is completely different. There's always like a rapid change of new music establishments, new fashion pop-ups, new restaurants. It's creating this like creative city in the inner city, and you wouldn't expect it, especially because of Brum. Like Brum is deemed a lot of young people coming in to experience what the inner city is about and how the culture is like ingrained in that space. So we're very similar, except you're looking at placement, I'm looking at activity and spatial change.
Yeah.
But we're on the same page though.
We're on the same page still. Yeah, it's just like it's just in different settings.
Yes. So how
Yeah.
you think, because you're looking at townships, I'm looking at the inner city, how would you think they would either contrast or like have similarities?
I think in townships,
Mm.
these spaces have always been there and they've been kind of generational. Let me put it that way. Yeah. So these spaces now, like the way that they're gaining traction in townships, it's more of, before it used to be a thing of the people who know these spaces know them and those are the people that go to them. But then now it's like it's attracting more people that don't reside in townships. People are specifically going to townships because they want to
Experience.
experience it. Yes.
Yes.
And they find it that the experience in the township is completely different from what you would find in Braamfontein. It's completely
Yes.
different from what you would find in Sandton. But then to me, the music is the same. Like it's still the same type of music. It's still the same type of way of expressing themselves.
Mm.
It's still the same type of activities that are happening. They're just occurring in different places and it's making people feel differently. So I
Yeah.
feel like because it's happening in a township, people find it to be a different experience, even though they might be participating in the same in the same activities. But then if it's happening in Braamfontein, same activities, same music, just a different place. People
Yeah,
also find it for a different experience.
exactly. No, I agree
Yeah.
with you. Especially the fact that it's the same activities, same music, different space, different kind of behavior. Because
Yeah.
I would say, like you said, groovers, right? Groover spaces
Yeah.
in townships are very like natural. They were there. They just formed there naturally. It wasn't like in my situation where Bram was like, okay, this is the building. You can have 1, 2, 3 restaurants, 1, 2, 3 lounges, 1, 2, 3 bars. Like it was like this was like deemed for this space. Yours is it was just naturally formed. People just created this by themselves.
Yeah, they did.
Yes, so it's definitely like a different environment. So there's like different behaviors. Like you're not gonna, I feel like for me, township groover spaces is like it's very natural. It's like we're all just coming together, like bring your own booze, bring your own things, camping chairs, we just gotta chill outside. It's a nice time. Where
Yeah,
yes,
it could even be in like, yeah, it's a nice time as you said. Like it doesn't have to even be in like a certain building. It doesn't have to be constrained to a certain
exactly.
building like it is in the inner city. In a township, it can be an open field. It can be at a car wash. It can
Literally,
be at a restaurant.
it just spills out into the building and spills out into what would deem like in the inner city, like this is the place where you're gonna be and this is where it's gonna partake. It doesn't spill out into the street per se in townships. It's just everywhere and anywhere.
Yeah.
It's very naturally forming. So I think that's like the biggest difference between your research topic and my research topic. Yours is very naturally built and very naturally found. Mine is somewhat constructed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you say that music influences, I wouldn't want to say the behavior, but like music influences, let me say the behavior and like the atmosphere and the mood of the types of activities that could happen?
Yes. I think it does.
Scenario. So if we
Like, I'm trying to find a way to answer it because I do think it does. I definitely do think it does.
in a mall, for example, let's say we're in Santon. Let me just say Santon for now. We're in Santon and we're going to, let me say Adidas. What music would you think Adidas would play compared to sports scene?
I think Adidas would play more. Okay, in general they would be playing mainstream, but then I think Adidas would be more hip hop.
Mm,
That's what I would think because the style of Adidas would go towards hip hop more.
yeah.
Like I find it weird. I can't think of myself walking into Adidas and then they're playing like some sort of R&B.
No, me either.
It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah,
But
okay.
then with
Okay.
sports
Yeah.
scene, most of the time I've walked into sports scene, I'm a piano.
True.
Literally every single sports scene I've walked into, I'm a piano. But then what I find interesting is that the style from sports scene and Adidas are almost the same.
That's the thing. Like they almost the same.
Because even sports scene sources stuff from Adidas. So
Exactly, but they're completely different atmospheres. And
yeah.
you go in with like a completely different mindset from what you would have going to Adidas.
Yeah.
So we can definitely say that music has an influence on the type of activities, or that maybe even perhaps going as far as to say on the type of people you would find in those areas.
Mm.
But as much
Interesting.
as music influences the activities and perhaps the people that come into the spaces, it comes with its own set of challenges and issues and conflicts, not just like within the people in the space, but I think the surrounding spaces as well. Like, I think in your research, would you think there would be conflict between the groover spaces and the surrounding areas? I think it's just like it's a normal thing.
It's a normal thing.
Like it's expected. Like
Yeah, it's expected. It's in a space where this is something that usually happens. Still something that they say that it's just part of what it is living in a township.
yes. Cool. Let's
Yeah.
join in. Let's also make our own space out of it.
Yeah. Like, it's a norm. It's a social norm that everyone has just accepted. Like everyone has agreed to it. You would not fight it as
Mm,
much as you would like in a suburb or even like in Braamfontein, for
yes.
example. Yeah, it's just part of what it is. That's the best way to put it.
It's just the everyday thing that occurs.
Yeah.
Would happen in Bra. Would you think that the music culture isn't completely as deeply ingrained as townships? It's more of like, I don't want to say an adaptation, but it's more of an addition to the inner city. Or do you think that Brahm's music culture is ingrained in Brahm? And then, like, the first thing you think of Brahm is like, okay, music, fashion, lifestyle. Or is it the opposite?
I think it's engraved in Brahm in its own way. Like, is it to the extent that it is in townships? I don't think so. But
Mm,
then it is a part of Brahm. Like, it is engraved in Brahm. When I think Brahm, I think of those things, but I think that they are limited. It can only happen in a certain area.
Yes.
Outside of that, there's no ways that could be happening.
True, yes. And do you think, like you said, when people are coming into these townships, it's not invasive, it's very welcoming. In Bram, do you think it's like Bram locals are like, oh, more people are coming into my area to do like these music, to partake in music culture, or is it a thing of, oh wow, welcome, this is Bram, let me tell you about our culture, let me tell you about our background?
I think both. Same
Both.
thing with town. Yeah, both. There would
Okay.
be some people that are some sort of like they gatekeeping,
Mm,
right? But then there are people that are like, come to Brom, come see what's happening. Here's our culture and all of that. Like I think both can happen at the same time. But well, from what I've experienced, people are more open, they're more friendly. It's the same thing of come see what's happening here.
okay. Very
Thank
informative.
you for having me.
No, it's only a pleasure.